Hey everybody, this is Rybo at the bench, and today doing something a little bit different. This is kind of a story about my all-time favorite knife and the knife that really got me interested in knives when I was a kid. So just kind of some nostalgia, show off one of my favorites, and yeah, just see where it goes. All right, so this is the knife. This is a you can see this is a classic Kershaw box. This is the silver old box with the Pete Kershaw stamp on it. It's a model 2415 serrated liner lock. This is made in Japan, stainless steel. And you can compare this. This is like the new, I think this is my, what is this, Skyline box? Yep, this is a Skyline box. This is kind of the new Kershaw brand. But this is the old logo, if you want to kind of compare those logos. So this is the real old one. I think I got this when I was maybe 8 years old. So my dad's friend, my dad's best friend was from Indiana, and he went back to visit. And I can't remember if he actually went up to Oregon or if there was some kind of manufacturing plant or something in Indiana. But anyway, he brought this back and gave it to me, and it was like my first grown-up knife. You know, I had like Swiss Army knives and stuff. This is my first like actual pocket knife. And it was just a really special gift from him. I thought he was a really cool guy, and we used to talk basketball and stuff. So this just meant a lot to me. And so you know, that was man, that was almost 20 years ago. So I've had it ever since. So I've kept it in the box. So let's pop it open. There we go. So here's the knife. Put that aside for a second. Have all the original paperwork that came with this. So this is the kind of the lifetime guarantee that's got the Pete Kershaw thing on the back, and then the little this is actually pretty funny. Put that off camera for a second. This is the paper that came with it, some advertisement on the back, and a diagram of how to use a liner lock pocket knife, which is pretty funny. So anyway, I kept all the paperwork in the box for all these years, and here's the knife. So here it is. It's a pretty small knife, very, very lightweight, so it's some kind of titanium or something. This is less than 2 ounces, very, very light. In size wise, this is next to the Kershaw Skyline. I've also got the Ontario Rat, so you can tell it's a little bit smaller than both of these. Very uniform in terms of the handle size and shape compared to the blade, which I like a lot. But this is a lot lighter than either of these two. I think the Kershaw Skyline is maybe 2.5 ounces. I can't remember what the Rat is, but this is less than 2 ounces, so super, super light. And this is not the best made pocket knife. I mean, this is not the best steel. But it, to me, this knife just means a lot. It's a knife that I'll just, you know, I'll keep this as long as I can. Never plan on selling this guy. And it's just, you know, it means a lot to me. This is kind of what got me into enjoying pocket knives and stuff like that. So let me kind of go over the knife, and then I'll kind of maybe tell some stories about it. So it's kind of funny looking at this knife. So it has this like rubber textured grip here, which is kind of not a great thing for knives. But you know, it's held up for almost 20 years, which is crazy. And it's, you know, it's still pretty grippy, which I'm just shocked by. It has the rubber underneath the pocket clip there, which I always hated as a kid, because when you're clipping this, you know, it's got significant friction there. You've got the old school Kershaw logo here on the pocket clip there. And I do like this pocket clip. I actually have taken it off and kind of bent it to make it a little bit looser. You've got traditional Phillips head for everything. You can see they're pretty dented up from years of taking it apart and putting it back together. The labeling here, 2415 ST, that's the model number, with the KAI logo and made in Japan. and then the Kershaw logo on the back here as well. Serrated blade. The serrations are kind of worn down a little bit, just because of use throughout the years and the fact that it's not a great steel, but the blade is held up pretty good. The tip is broken off, and I'll tell that story in a little bit. This is a right-handed knife, so this is not ambidextrous. The cutout is for righties and not available there. And so this is only a one-handed knife. Liner lock, you can see, is 100%. So it's all the way there. That's just years and years of use. This knife was my only real knife for a long time. I mean, I used this for everything. I loved this knife. Just how lightweight it is, how quick that action is. That's probably my favorite thing. I still don't know if I've encountered a knife that's got such a satisfying action as this one does. And I just really love that about this. Like I said, this is just my all-time favorite knife, and always will be. So I talked about kind of how I got it. My dad's friend brought it back, and at that time, when I was probably 9 years old, I was really into, the stuff that a lot of kids that age are into, a lot of boys that age are into. So I loved military stuff. I was obsessed with Desert Storm for a while. I thought like Navy SEALs and like that kind of stuff was just the coolest stuff ever. I would like sneak around our house as a spy and try to like lock pick all the doors in our house and all that kind of stuff. So I loved knives and rope and all that stuff. And so this knife just came at a perfect time because it was like the first adult, real kind of gentleman's folder that I ever got. And I remember when I got it, the pivot was really tight, and I struggled for so long to flick this open, and I would just sit there and I just couldn't get it out at all, and it was really frustrating. And I remember my dad just telling me, sit in your room, don't do anything else, and just practice pushing this as hard as you can and flicking this, open. And he said, just practice it again and again and again. And I spent hours and hours just sitting in my room listening to, audiobooks or whatever, and just practicing the action on this knife. And one of the most satisfying things now is that this has just one of the best actions, one of the most satisfying, quick deploying knives. And I can say it took me a long time to learn how to do it. But as a kid, that was one of the best kind of feelings of accomplishment, was spending all that time learning how to really use my first real pocket knife. And to this day, the joy that it brings me to take this knife out and open it up is just unsurpassed. I talk so much about how I love the Ontario Rat 2, and one of the reasons, or the reason, that I really love this knife is that the action is just so good. It's so fast. It locks up nicely, and I think the reason I love it so much is that it reminds me so much of this knife. And I actually think that this knife is a little bit better. It's a little bit faster to me. The lockup's a little bit tighter. It's a lighter knife, so to have such a light knife that can still just fly out of the pocket is just great. And I don't really use this knife anymore. This pretty much stays oiled up. I put a coat of oil in it and then just keep it in the box because this is one that I don't really want to mess up. I really kind of retired this knife when I was in college, and so that'll get us into the next story. When I was in college, we had some friends over, and we were having a party, and someone locked their keys in their car, and they had this old Oldsmobile or something, and somebody was kind of bragging that they could pick a lock with a knife, and this, it's this old style car, and so the windows were kind of loose and stuff. And so actually an ex-girlfriend of mine tried to slide this knife down between the window and the door and ended up breaking the tip off. And I remember just being so frustrated because I just absolutely loved this knife. And so that's kind of when I decided to retire this. And you know, that relationship did not last. But that's kind of when I decided not to use this knife anymore, just because I would much rather keep this and beat up another knife and keep this for nostalgia's sake. I mean, this thing had a really good long run, but I think it was time to stop using it. So if you'll notice, this knife is chisel ground, and that's one of the things that used to frustrate me about it. There's actually some blade play in it now, and I probably just need to tighten up the pivot. Let me see if I have. Let's see if this will work right now. Yeah, so it does come loose now, but anyway, so this knife is chisel ground, and I've never been a fan of chisel ground blades. Mostly because, you know, when I was a kid, I would use this to kind of whittle and to take bark off of limbs and stuff like that. And to me, it was really frustrating being a right-handed knife and having it chisel ground in this way, because when you're scraping something off, you want to use it as you would a chisel, which is to come at it in this way, so that you're scraping shavings up. When you're coming at it this way, you've got to get this perfect angle down to come, and it's just not enjoyable. But nevertheless, I really do love this knife. Now, it's not, it's not great to sharpen, and that's because it's I would assume a cheaper knife. I really don't have no clue. But this back did not come perfectly flat, and so you can see some scraping in here from when I've sharpened it. To get really this outer edge and this edge here to be in flat. I mean, the middle part doesn't really matter. But to be honest, like I said, I don't really sharpen this knife anymore because I don't use it. And so, it's fine that it stays a little bit dull. But overall, I just wanted to kind of highlight the knife that really made me interested in knives. I mean, the joy that this knife brought me when I was a kid. It's just, when I think about this knife, a lot of memories from childhood up through college come back. There were a lot of good times, a lot of great camping trips, and just kind of fun phases of life that have happened while I've had this knife, and it's been a joy the whole time. These are stories and things I hope to pass on to my own son one day, and hopefully pass him down this knife, and maybe pick out a knife of his own that I can give him that'll be a similar knife that will gather a lot of stories over childhood, and that he can look back on like I do this one. But this one will never be sold. If I can find more information, I'd really love to, because I'd love to know, what kind of steel this is, and more details about it. But, overall, I just think it's a really great design. I like the look of it. I just like that kind of titanium feel to it, that real light metal feel to it, and obviously just the memories that come with it. So anyway, thought it would be interesting to just give kind of an insight on what got me interested, and really, the love of this knife really got me to pursue Kershaw's when I really got into knives later on. It's kind of what led me to the Skyline, trying out the Leak, different knives like that. But yeah, anyway, this was kind of my gateway drug, if you will. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this kind of rambling story, and hopefully see you next time for an actual review. Thanks.